Battlefield, Georgia. It's just weeks away, friends, and it's going to get more and more intense as it gets closer. The balance of the Senate here is what is at stake. Who is going to be in the majority? Huge implications, honestly, for whatever happens with the presidential election. We still need control of the Senate. So to tell us what's going on there and also just look more broadly at what's happening across the country with these voter issues, we've got our friend Ryan Girdusky with us now. He is the author of They're Not Listening, How Elites Created the National Populist Revolution. He's worked on many political campaigns and knows this game inside and out. Ryan, great to have you back.
Thanks for having me.
So what's happening right now in Georgia? You were down there for a few weeks. Tell me about the state of play, because there are a lot of people that are asking me questions like, Buck, hold on. If we have so little faith in what happened in the presidential election, and there clearly were problems, I mean, there were votes, thousands of votes that weren't counted and issues like that. What's going on down there right now? Is the state GOP in command and control, or should we all be worried?
Well, the state GOP is extremely incompetent. I mean, it's the problem with a lot of red states is that they are so used to winning and winning easily that they oftentimes don't have the most efficient people running the show, because it's considered they can just sleep through an election cycle. Their Secretary of State is a bumbling moron. There's no doubt about that at all. I'll break some news to you. The Deputy Secretary of State, this woman who's been apparently making a lot of the calls, back a few months ago, she wanted, and this is leaked to me by several people within the state party, she wanted to have a rapper do a public announcement to sit there and try to get poll watchers. The rapper who sings WAP, whose name I'm literally blanking out on. But anyway, she wanted to have rappers sit there and try to get poll watchers. There's two fundamental problems. One is
Cardi
that
B,
after
I believe.
Cardi B, yes, Cardi B, that's the one. She wanted Cardi B, if you know who that is, she wanted Cardi B to get poll watchers in Georgia for the Republican Party. It's just a joke. The problem essentially comes down twofold. One is that the Secretary of State did not mandate that counties report how many absentee ballots they had in on election night. So DeKalb, Gwinnett, Fulton, all these counties did not sit there and report how many ballots were outstanding. And the problem was they kept on finding them. They found tens of thousands, and poll watchers were forced to leave major poll sites. And even though votes were still being tabulated, so there's opportunity for fraud, even if there isn't election fraud, even if there was an election fraud, the opportunity for election fraud is boundless. Another big problem is they created this system, the local county board of elections created a system called drop boxes, where you could sit there and just drop your ballot in the box, and they would be picked up and they were secure apparently and brought to be counted later on. That is illegal under Georgia state law. Under Georgia state law, a ballot has to be delivered in person by two people watching the ballot being delivered, because what also is illegal in Georgia is ballot harvesting. Now, when you're dropping off tons of ballot, or you have the potential to drop off tons of ballots in a drop box, which apparently has a camera, but the cameras aren't being used to sit there and watch people delivering more than one ballot. They're being used to sit there and making sure that nobody's destroying the drop boxes. So you have a problem with that as well, these drop boxes. No one is suing as of right now to sit there and get these drop boxes removed, and every county is allowed to decide how many drop boxes they want in the county. All those things are really, working against us, and the state party really needs to ratify a lot of these problems. And I have a lot of confidence in the state party. I think, listen, they need to pick up one of these two Senate seats. David Perdue was just a few thousand votes shy of missing a runoff. He's well liked, even in areas where Trump wasn't well liked in the outside suburbs of Atlanta. Stacey Abrams has been running around screaming there's 900,000 absentee ballots already in the mix. As usual with Stacey Abrams, I've come to realize that oftentimes she takes credit for things that she doesn't necessarily deserve credit for. Most of these absentee ballots are for seniors that normally would get absentee ballots. There's not a huge surge in the number of absentee ballots in the city of Atlanta. It's pretty evenly dispersed statewide because it's just for seniors. So all those things are really happy at the same time.
On Purdue, and shouldn't panic over this 900, because I've seen that number thrown around a lot.
No,
900,000
yeah.
absentee
I
ballots.
reached out to people yesterday in the state party and they said it's not that serious. And then I looked at the breakdown of every congressional district and it's almost exactly evenly dispersed through. I mean, there's a little bit more in Atlanta, but it's not sizably more. It's not like 899,000 to one, the rest of the state. It's like 75,000, 80,000, 89,000, 78,000. So almost evenly run across the entire state of Georgia.
We're speaking to Ryan Girdusky, author of They're Not Listening, How the Elites Created the National Populist Revolution. And he was down in Georgia seeing for himself what's going on there with these upcoming races. Ryan, there's been all this dust up over whether the GOP, and it is a GOP-controlled state, would allow for signature matching in the recount in Georgia. It seems, and anybody reading or paying attention to this, it seems like, why wouldn't they allow that? Can you tell us what's going on?
So this is what I've heard, and I can't exactly confirm this from more than just like voice of mouth from people and the state party, is that when Brian Kemp became the governor, he was originally the Secretary of State. When he vacated the position of Secretary of State, immediately upon winning the governor's election, the former governor, Nathan Deal, appointed somebody, a longstanding government bureaucrat, to sit there and to become the active Secretary of State for several months. She dealt with the onslaught. This woman who was appointed dealt with the onslaught of lawsuits from Stacey Abrams. She conceded a lot of points to Stacey Abrams and allowed her, apparently, to sit there and get away with a lot of things, like having the NAACP be poll watchers, having motor voter, which allows everyone who has a driver's license in the state to be a registered voter. Sat there and okayed the idea of not matching signatures. The big problem is because of COVID, someone in the state party or the Secretary of State's office thought that we didn't want to sit there and spread COVID by, I guess, people sharing a pen. So in some cases, they did not have to sign at all to sit there and to vote. There's a lot of ineffective people running different state parties. However, I will sit there and remind people two important things that worked against President Trump that clearly were that there's no evidence of being fraud or bad run state parties. One, David Perdue did outperform in all the suburbs of Atlanta. And secondly, and most importantly, the 9th congressional district, the second most Republican congressional district in Georgia, it's northwest Georgia. That district pretty substantially underperformed as far as turnout goes. They had about 75,000 fewer votes come out of that district than in the neighboring districts. And that district, being one of the most Republican, would have delivered Trump the state, would have delivered David Perdue the state. It's in the Chattanooga television market. And that television market did not have a single ad running for the entire duration of the campaign, and especially the last few months. There was, and the Democrat congressional candidate had dropped out. So there wasn't a grassroots movement to sit there and try from the congressional candidates to sit there and try to pull people out. A lot of the state legislative seats didn't have a Democrat opponent because it's such a Republican area. So grassroots efforts to sit there and kind of maybe pull the stragglers or the low hanging fruit or some of the low energetic voters to sit there and get them out. That would have probably made or broke the state. I think that they're kind of realizing that now. And also, it's not the Georgia Republican Party that's just involved in Georgia right now. The RNC has over 450 people on the ground right now in Georgia. So they're mobilized and they're energetic and they run a pretty efficient operation.
Speaking of Ryan Girdusky, author of They're Not Listening, How the Elites Created the National Populist Revolution. Ryan, I'm sure you've seen some of the testimony out of Arizona, out of Michigan. I've been speaking to people on the ground in Pennsylvania who I think Pennsylvania, there's clearly issues. I mean, there were clearly, when I say issues, I don't just mean allegations of fraud. They changed the election procedure in a state where you're not allowed to do that without the legislature actually making those changes. So I think Pennsylvania is going to be a place where the lawsuits could actually...
Those drop boxes are against state law, and they still have them there. That is, I mean, it's literally in the statute and sits there and says how people should be allowed to vote absentee, and these drop boxes violate the state law. But
why aren't they suing? I mean, we got a GOP there. You're talking to these guys. Why aren't they suing?
I bring it up till I'm blue in the face. Maybe I'm not speaking to the right people. I don't know. They are, I will say one thing, the Attorney General's office is investigating these groups that are trying to register new voters right before the runoff, because allegedly, I saw this firsthand in New York City, several apartment buildings my friends live in, they had literature being dropped in front of their house saying register to vote in Georgia. So they are investigating those groups. I don't know why they're not suing for the drop boxes. Coming from the world of campaigns, I will say two things. One, after a vote is already cast, it is extremely unlikely that a judge is going to sit there and strike that ballot, simply for the fact that they do not want to deter people from voting and sit there and try to say and argue this is not a legitimate ballot. It's just the way judges usually work. Secondly, if the Georgia state legislature right now tried to convene to change all these laws 60 days before election day, there would be a very, very hard time for that to get passed. Also, a judge would probably rule you can't change election law within 60 days of an election. I think that the more likely thing to do right now is to sue over clearly violations of the law, and also for the Secretary of State's office. And I wish there was a stronger Secretary of State. I asked everyone, I said, what was his past job? They said he was just a rich guy who wanted to be a statewide elected official. I wish that the Secretary of State's office would have sat there and, I don't know, had marshals, had somebody there. Most of the votes in Atlanta are counted in one giant supercenter. Have someone sit there and monitor it, that if someone were to leave, they were to leave with them. That wasn't secure. They found 60,000 absentee ballots days after the election, and they said, oh, we forgot to click the upload button on the computer for the 60,000 ballots to show. Those should have been stopped immediately and checked out and inspected, and when they were actually even put into the computer and processed. All of these things are extremely worrisome. I will say I do have more confidence in the Republican Senate committee being involved on the ground in Georgia than I do the Georgia GOP. But after this happens, Georgia needs to realize they are not South Carolina. They are looking closer and closer to being Virginia. And they need to really realize that they are in a changing state. And they need extremely competent people. It can't be the good old boy system where someone's great uncle who's been loyal to the party becomes chairman of one of the most important counties in the state, which I saw time and time and time again.
We got to ask you this before we let you go, Ryan. You've seen what's going on with these hearings in Arizona and Michigan, and there's one in Nevada, I believe, that will happen tomorrow. Is Trump's case in your mind, is it getting stronger, or is it just disappearing over time?
I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, and I've never run absentee ballot challenges in any of these states before. If it was New York, I could tell you much more substantive than I can do it in any of these states. I will say that Trump's tone and conversation has changed over time. At the Christmas party yesterday, he sat there and said, see you in 4 years. It's more likely that he's talking about running again in 2024 than he is that he will be the president in 2021.
Ryan Girdusky, everybody. They're not listening. How the elites created the national populist revolution. Check it out. Look, I know it's tough these days. There are a lot of people in your life that you really care about that you're probably not going to get to see over the holiday season because travel's all messed up. There are all these restrictions, all these problems and concerns. But you can still send someone joy through the mail. I'm doing it. In fact, I've sent my girlfriend, I've sent family members flowers from Bloomsy Box. And it's just amazing to see how much they light up when they get them. You can check, they'll send you a Facebook photo, they'll send you something on their phone. You can see, oh, look at that. They love Bloomsy Box. That's a great way to reach out and tell people you're thinking about them, and also just to give them a little bit of a brighter day. Bloomsy Box are simply better blooms. They're incredible, and the price is amazing. These are artisan designed arrangements that will last a long time. Plus, I got you a special discount. Go to bloomsybox.com and enter promo code BUCK to get 15% off and free shipping. That's Bloomsybox, BLOOMSY, bloomsybox.com. Use promo code BUCK to get 15% off and free shipping.
You're 90 to 95% immune after the second dose. But if there's still a lot of COVID circulating in your community, then you can still get infected, much less likely, but you can still get infected and you can still get sick. So that's part of the reason why, at least for a short period of time, until there is widespread vaccination, we need to have everybody still wearing masks when they're out and about. But look, once we get to 70, 80% of Americans getting vaccinated, that will really bring the pandemic under control, at which point I think certainly in low-risk situations we don't have to be wearing masks anymore. Life will really begin to get better. And I'm hoping that's, by the way, like May, June, not like in 2022 or something. So I do think there will come a time when we don't have to wear masks as much, but that's not going to happen until a lot of Americans have gotten vaccinated.
So let's be very clear about what this doctor on The View is saying, because I've been telling you that this is going to be what happens all along, because I understand their mentality. Even if you are vaccinated, you still have to wear a mask. Think about that. So even if you get a vaccine that is 95% effective, far higher than what they were even projecting 6 months ago, you're still going to have to wear a mask. You wear a mask until they say so. Wow. Yeah. These are the new rules. This is the new world we live in. Still have never heard anybody explain why we're not going to have to wear masks in flu season. Oh, the tens of thousands of people who die every year from flu, they don't count? Masking isn't a big deal, right? Why not enforce this all the time? I know I shouldn't give them ideas because I'm worried. I'm starting to think that they might bring this back even after this pandemic is gone. Yeah, why not? Right? They like this. Do this because I said so. Do it. Yeah, I've got a vaccine. I'm 95% protected against this. That means 95 out of 100 people with the vaccine aren't going to be infected at all, or aren't going to show any symptoms and be able to transmit it to anybody. And they're still saying everybody has to wear a mask, you see. Mask, mask, mask. Now remember, at the beginning of this, they said don't wear masks. But that's how obvious it is. I'm sorry, I'm not letting this go. That's how obvious it is that this protects you, that at the start of this, when they thought there was a 3 to 5% fatality rate, far higher than the actual fatality rate by a factor of hundreds, they said don't wear a mask. But now it's essential that you do this. It's essential. They're not going to let this go. No. I get vaccinated, I'm not wearing a mask. They can arrest me. Not doing it. When I get that vaccine in my arm and I'm 95% good to go, I'm not wearing a mask anymore. Not on the treadmill, not on the elevator, not out on the streets. We got to draw a line here, folks. We got to draw a red line on this. Enough is enough. These people are out of their minds. But notice this is what happens when you give people some power and put them in charge. Why can't they make every decision about your life? It's life and death. Why can't they tell you what you can eat? Well, as we know, the libs like to do these things. Whatever they can get away with dictating to you, they will do. Oh, you think that this is just for COVID? You don't think they're going to pull a climate emergency on you and tell you that, sorry, the world is at risk. It's about saving the world. Got to tell you everything that you can do about your life, your business, you name it, climate emergency. I'm still appalled at how much people have gone along with this idiocy all along. Just do whatever they say. They show you what frauds they are constantly, but we're supposed to do whatever they say. Okay, sure. At least Dr. Rand Paul is out there saying people need to say enough is enough, okay? They need to start telling people to go blank themselves when they say, oh, you've been vaccinated, you still have to wear a mask. What is the chance that a person who is vaccinated, any one individual, what is it, 1 in 100,000 they're going to give it to somebody and that person's actually going to die? I mean, really, crunch the numbers on this. What are the chances that any one person? Here's Rand Paul saying exactly what I'm saying, which is that don't let them get away with this nonsense. Play 20.
Trying to take some precautions is reasonable, but there are now people saying, Dr. Fauci included, that when we have a vaccine, you're still going to have to wear a mask. So people do need to push back. I'm one of those who are immune, and I keep pushing back. 13 million Americans have had this. We don't need to tell them they have to wear a mask.
Notice, though, it's become a cult now. Even if you've had COVID, they want you wearing a mask because, it sends a symbol to other people. Oh, but I thought this was about life and death and health. I didn't think it was about the symbolism that some people want to see. I'm telling you right now, hard line on this one. I get vaccinated, not masking up. Maybe for private businesses, but not in my own home, in my own building, not on the streets. No, sir. I recently got a crash course in home title theft, and this is something you need to take action against now because it goes after your most valuable asset, your home. Here's how it works. The bad guys, cyber thieves, they find your home's title online because it's stored in the cloud or on servers. Then they use a quitclaim deed to kick you off, put themselves on, and take out loans against your home's equity. You often won't find out about this until you receive payment notices in the mail, perhaps even a foreclosure notice. The usual identity theft services do not protect you. You have to go with the experts I trust at Home Title Lock. All you have to do is go to HomeTitleLock.com, enter the promo code RADIO. That'll get you 30 free days of protection, and you can check at that site to see if you're a victim of this crime and don't even know it. HomeTitleLock.com, promo code RADIO. Again, that will get you 30 free days of protection, and you can check online to see if you're a victim of this crime and don't know it yet.
Times are tough, but I want you to know that help is on the way. Last week, I announced the nominations and staff for critical foreign policy and national security positions. A first-rate team that's going to keep us safe and secure. And today, I have the pleasure of announcing key nominations and appointments for the critical economic positions in the administration. A first-rate team that's going to get us through this ongoing economic crisis and help us build the economy back, not just build it back, but build it back better than it was before.
Help is on the way. Remember that, Mrs. Doubtfire? Help is on the way. Yeah. Here's Joe Biden telling you that the economic genius, the people that he's bringing in, is going to really get things going for the economy. Their version of helping the economy is taking more from people who are productive and trying to find more ways to spread that money around at the government's whim and act like that's somehow making us all better, richer, wealthier, more prosperous. That's what they do. That's the situation. But you're supposed to believe that this is going to make your life better. We had 8 years of Barack Obama's economy. You remember that? Do you think that was good? No, they had to make excuses all the time. Oh, he inherited a depression. Oh, it was so terrible when he came in. That was what you heard for years. Yeah, it's not really so good. Yeah, I know. But they made excuses for it. And then eventually, because this is America, the economy got back on its feet, was doing pretty well. Wasn't great, wasn't what it should have been. And then Trump came in, the economy booms. You know, we're going to go back to, okay, maybe it's not as good, but everyone's going to pay their fair share. There'll be more redistribution of wealth, more of the government in charge of your life, your spending, all of it. That's what we're heading back to. That's where we're going here. And I think we should all remind ourselves of that. Plus, some heavy doses of social justice and left-wing lunacy via economic policy, monetary policy. Here's Janet Yellen telling you what she plans to do if she becomes Treasury Secretary, which is Biden's plan. Play 10.
Gender disparities that keep women out of the workforce and keep our economy from running at full force. It's a convergence of tragedies that is not only economically unsustainable, but one that betrays our commitment to giving every American an equal chance to get ahead. But I know this team will never give up that commitment. As you've said before, Mr. President-elect, out of our collective pain as a nation, we will find collective purpose to control the pandemic and build our economy back better than before, to rebuild our infrastructure and create better jobs, to invest in our workforce, to advance racial equity and make sure the economic recovery includes everyone.
Racial equity, climate change. This is what the would-be Biden administration Treasury Secretary thinks is her mandate. Gosh, almost like the libs understand all along that the economy is just a giant opportunity for social engineering and social justice tinkering. Oh, yeah, they know. Get ready for a lot of that. Get ready for that to become more assuming that, these legal challenges don't work. I think. Can you all just give me the expectation here is that I'm gonna, whenever I talk about Biden and his team, the administration, I'm not throwing in the towel, but I'm just dealing with what we're being presented here as this transition is allegedly going forward. Okay, or the transition is going forward. It's allegedly a done deal. So I'm not saying it's a done deal, but this is what's happening in Democrat land. This is what's happening with Biden and the folks around him. So I think it's worth at least dealing with here. It's worth at least looking at what's happening and understand that the Democrats are planning to do everything they can to mold the country more in their image, which is going to be a full-throated embrace of the kinds of corporate diversity rhetoric and all this stuff that we see. I think just in New York now they're talking about mandating diversity on corporate boards. You're going to see a lot more of this. Some of these social justice issues that America hasn't been constantly bombarded with by the Trump administration. If anything, Trump has been holding back this tide. They're going to come back. There's going to be a whole lot more of this, and we need to be ready for it because they haven't changed at all on any of this. In fact, here, I remember, just a little bit of a review. Under the Obama administration, Barack Obama himself, as president, was so devoted to the idea of making bathrooms. I believe it was in South Carolina. It could be North Carolina, though. I got to check. But in one of the Carolinas, was so devoted to a federal education policy that would mandate transgender student bathroom usage of their preferred gender. Right? Now, notice anyone can transition, and that's to be celebrated at any age. You can be 5, 8, 12, doesn't matter. If you transition, it's affirmation, it's celebrated. You'll see, though, the left has a big problem with people who then want to transition back. Because, well, what does that mean? Does it mean that they didn't actually need to transition in the first place? Does it mean that this is just a decision? If this is innate in who you are, how can you transition twice? How can you affirm 2 times? Right? They will always have this cognitive dissonance. What they're saying is best summed up by the very, very obvious question, but one that they don't have a good answer for. What is a woman? Ask a liberal this. You see this all over social media. What is a woman? And they will hesitate for a second. I would sit here and say a woman is somebody who is a female, has female anatomy, and has, XX chromosome. Right? That's a woman. They would say, well, a woman is someone who self-identifies as a woman. But then when you dig into that a little bit more, you say, well, does that mean that can I self-identify as a woman today and change my mind tomorrow? If not, why not? No, really push them on these issues, right? Because there's a desperation on the left to create in their minds, and this goes very deep into the culture of left-wing politics and the Democrat Party in America. They're desperate to create this notion that they are fighting in a new civil rights struggle, that they're the great heroes of periods past where there was real oppression in this country, where we do have a legacy of slavery and women were not allowed to vote, and all these different areas where there needed to be changes over time. There needed to be fights that we had to have, right? Fights that we had to have to be a more ethical, more moral country. Never perfect, but certainly needed to be better than we were on some of those issues as a country. The great stain of our past, slavery. We were constantly reminded of this, not just by the left, but in any history class that's worthy of the name. Okay. So, with all of that, now they're looking for another way to pose as the great heroes of the moment, and they've picked, because we now have gay marriage is the law in all 50 states. We now have transgender rights is the latest frontier. But this is running into some problems because it's not clear, even by the left's own rules and dictates, well, how does this all work? But one thing that you can be sure of is that whatever radical leftist position is fashionable at any point in time, you'll have people like Chuck Schumer agreeing with it. And here he is talking about what he wants the Biden administration to do. Play clip 12.
Joe Biden said that on his first day of office, he will give transgender students access to sports, bathrooms, and locker rooms in accordance with their gender identity in all federally funded schools. Do you think he has the ability to do this, and do you agree with this decision?
I agree with the decision, and I know he'll check things out thoroughly legally.
Agrees with the decision. That's right. Chuck Schumer wants anatomical males, 12-year-old boys who are identifying as female. We should really dive in more to why there's this huge surge in people identifying as different genders all of a sudden, and why the left gets very angry when anyone actually does research into this. But a 12-year-old boy who identifies as a girl is now going to be using the girl, under a Biden administration would be federally mandated. This would become an issue of federal regulation. Federal education policy. They'll be using the bathrooms of your 12-year-old daughter and the same locker room and the changing areas and all that stuff. I remember when even 10 years ago, if you said this is where the left is heading, because I was a part of those debates, they would tell you never. We would never do that. I used to use examples like, what about a male inmate in a prison who's got a 20-year sentence that says, you know what, I want to be in a female prison. I identify as female. If you're a biological male, you are a lot safer in a female prison than you are in a male prison, as well as other reasons why some people might choose to do that. And I said, well, can't we all agree that that's crazy as a policy? And they would say, oh, of course, we're not trying to do that. We're not making that our new stand. Well, turns out that is now possible. They have to go through, there's some process they've put in place to prove that it's a real transition, but now they will put biological males in with females in a prison system. Now they will put biological males against women in sports. And I'm sorry, this is sad. This should not be happening. It's wrong for the women who have their ability and their skill relative to their gender, because that's a real thing, effectively nullified by someone who comes in who says, I identify as female, and all of a sudden is winning all the races, bigger and stronger than the women. Like, this is a surprise to anybody? Oh, but liberals are also, but we want to be the nice people, and we want to feel inclusive. It's not inclusive for the girls that have been, trying as hard as they can, working long hours at the track so they can get as fast as possible, to have some guy come in who's 6 feet tall and 185 pounds and has much greater muscle mass and much less body fat relative to his peer group, which is now females, and is beating all of them. They clap for this. They think this is good. There's even a transgender female who was fighting in MMA for a while, which is really dangerous for women to get into a ring with a guy. And I hate when I have all these people who confuse feminism, girl power with what I'm talking about. Okay, let's not live in a delusional world. Let's live in the real world. Women are overwhelmingly going to be smaller, lighter, not as fast, not as strong as men of comparable age group and activity. That's just reality. This is true. We all know this, but they want us to forget this. They also want us to forget back to the transgender student issue. Oh, and I brought up Obama. Obama, during his administration, was threatening federal funding for public schools. Made it very explicit. Federal funding for public schools unless people use the bathroom of their gender identity. So when you talk funding with schools, the Department of Ed folks, they'll do whatever now. Okay, sure, whatever you want us to do. So get ready for more of this. And these fights are also going to coincide with a lot of efforts at cancel culture. These debates are going to be full of lies and smears meant to hurt people's careers, meant to hurt their livelihoods. If you won't call, I think her name is Ellen Page, just decided, or just announced, I should say, yesterday that she is a man. If you use the wrong pronoun, people are going to come after you, and they might use the force of law against you. You'd say, well, how would they do that? If you're in an office setting now, and someone is a he, and you call that person a she, is that now discrimination? according to, unfortunately, the Supreme Court and Neil Gorsuch, it seems like it is. So now you have to lie about somebody's gender as a matter of law. That's the country we're living in now. Gender is a binary. It is a real thing. It is or is not. We can all observe it. We all see it. We all know. There are cases where gender can be unclear as a physical, biochemical manifestation, but that's not what we're talking about. And if it is what we're talking about, all these other people who are just psychologically affirming some other gender, that's a different thing. So they won't actually use that as the explanation for this. But this is coming your way. And this is happening. If there's a Biden administration, there's going to be a lot of stuff that you're told you better believe, you better sign on for, and they're going to try to force you to bend the knee. There's a tremendous amount of rage and resentment stored up after even only 4 years of Trump here. The left wants a purification of America through leftist pain. Get ready for it.
We just don't have time to waste time. We have a couple of weeks left here. Obviously, it does require bipartisan support to get out of the Congress, but it requires a presidential signature. And this government is in place for sure for the next month.
Yeah, they'll just wait it out. They don't care that people are suffering. Democrats will wait this thing out. Does not matter to them. That's the plan. That's what you see happening. And they're going to play this game, too. I mean, Senator King is an idiot. I mean, he's a particularly dumb fellow. But he'll play dumb, even dumber than he is, in order to do this whole, what do you mean the Republicans won't just go along with our proposed bill? The Republicans have offered up money for COVID suffering, for COVID problems. Democrats are saying, yeah, we'll agree to pass that, but you also have to do all these other things that have nothing to do with COVID that we want. They're holding the funding hostage. That's what they are doing. But Senator King is going to say, oh, I don't understand what's going on here, play 8.
We really tried to come to a middle ground, and we got tired of waiting, frankly. And I don't understand what the majority leader's problem is. But, John, there's an important thing about the majority leader that isn't in the civics books, and that is that he or she has absolute power over what comes to the floor of the U.S. Senate. We can have a bill supported by 99 senators, and if the majority leader said, I'm not going to bring it up, it doesn't come up. And there's no mechanism seriously to make that happen. So he's got to listen, and I'm hoping he's going to listen to the members of his caucus saying, look, we need to do something. It's urgent. People are going to be losing benefits. People are going to be losing their places to live. They're going to be evicted. Schools are going to have really serious problems. We've got to do something, and we put forward a good faith effort to make that happen.
No, they haven't. They could have just signed the bill, gone forward with the bill, voted for the bill that Trump signed it months ago. But they won't.